Hi guys, it's me ChazzaHDF1 and welcome to this podcast episode where it's me only for tonight, where I'm going to be finally looking at the new 2020 cars for the 2020 Formula 1 season, looking at all the new details, the new liveries, giving my thoughts and opinions on it and doing some deeper analysis, I guess, of all the new cars, and hopefully it will give you a nice lowdown or kind of preview going into testing, of course, which does start tomorrow. Hopefully you guys who are watching are having a good day, and hopefully you are, just like me, excited for testing and for the 2020 season to basically get underway. But before I get into going team by team and looking at the cars, I just want to get into why I haven't been uploading in the last, been a week or so. Now, you may have seen my community post on my on my community tab on the channel page, where I said that, I'd had a technical issue, another technical issue. I had so many in that period of time that I basically, lost motivation to, I guess, continue doing this. Now, basically, now I'm back, I guess. There will be a couple, I guess, changes to how I do things. From now on, I am only going to do content that I absolutely want to do, because I'll be honest, guys, and it was kind of building the last couple months of 2019 as well. Because of the amount of issues I was having, it kind of felt as though at times I was doing stuff that I didn't want to do, and it was, stuff I had to do. So from now on, I'm only going to do, whether it's a stream or a recorded video, when I want to, because what I do at the end of the day is a hobby. I'm covering a sport I love. It should be that way. It should not feel like something, again, that I don't want to do, or, feel like something I hate doing, which at times it felt that way because of the amount of problems I had, and, with the winter break coming, and of course the slow down, I guess, of growth for the channel doesn't make things, good. So from now on, and I'll get into later on as well what my plan for testing is in terms of content, in the next couple of weeks. Again, it will be content that I want to do, not content I feel as though I have to do. I'm only going to do it if I actually want to. If I don't want to, then I'm not going to do it, and that's the way, of course, it should be. So just to clarify, that is, the way I am, moving forward from this. Now, I just also, before we get into the team-by-team review of, the new cars, I just want to let you guys know of the format of tonight's stream. Again, sadly, I'm the only one on tonight. Nib cannot be with us because Liverpool are playing in the Champions League, and of course he has to watch that, so it will only be me for tonight. But you guys need to be, if you can tonight, as, say, interactive as possible, because each time I finish, talking about one of the teams, so for example, once I finish in a minute talking about Mercedes, I will come to you guys in the chat in between going through every single team, and there'll be points of the stream where, say after the top 3 teams, I'll come to you guys for 10-15 minutes and see what you guys have to say. So you guys, hopefully you are feeling up for it, feeling interactive, because I'll be coming to you guys a lot during the next, what's probably going to be an hour and a half to 2 hours, probably 2 hours. This stream will be. So hopefully you guys are ready for that. But let's get into it. And we'll start off with the Silver Arrows Mercedes. And we'll start off with the front angle of this Mercedes car. Now, if you look at the front wing itself, it doesn't really look that much different at all from the 2019 front wing. The biggest thing I noticed from this front angle is the cape on each side of the nose cone that you can see, pointing out from the side. It goes all the way back, I think, almost. It might even go all the way back completely to the bargeboard area. It is incredible how that looks on that angle. It is a very nice looking part of the front nose cone, but really from the front end, you can't really notice that much different with the 2020 Mercedes, of course, a W11 car. But if I go to the side angle, you can notice a couple more new things. Again, the barge board area is a lot more detailed. This will be the case once we go through every team. This is the case with every single team. The barge board area is more detailed with every single team than it was this time last year. And of course, Mercedes last year had the best barge board area of their car out of anyone. So of course, it is going to be highly detailed. And Mercedes have also gone for a Ferrari style side pod in terms of the packaging around the, the engine and the gearbox and stuff like that. Now, on this studio shot, you can't really see it that well. But if I go to, let me see if I have it. Yeah, if you go to this shot when they did their shakedown at Silverstone, you can see again how tighter the packaging is on the side pod. And again, if you look at last year's Ferrari, it is a lot more similar to that than it was, for the 2019 Mercedes. So, yeah, the car, not that many big differences you can notice immediately from the 2019 car. I'm sure Mercedes are hiding a lot on this car, before we get to testing and then the second test and even the first Grand Prix of the season. But another big talking point has been the livery of this car. Now, they have added some shades of red to this car because they have a new sponsorship deal. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the INEOS sponsor. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it because I know I'll get it wrong. But people have been, I wouldn't say angry, but disappointed in how the car looks. I don't really see how this car looks any worse than last year. In fact, if you look at it, from more angles, here's a front angle. You can see the red there on the front or the edges of the front wing with the new sponsor. I don't think it looks that bad. I think it actually looks pretty good. And with the red part of the livery just above where the driver sits, I think the reason they've done that is because of the whole Niki Lauda tribute, the hat thing that they did, of course, when he sadly passed away midway through last year. I think that's why they've got it right above the driver there, because that is a nice little tribute. Is indeed, that is what they have done. But looking at it, it looks fine. The livery looks absolutely fine. And I thought, honestly, last year's Mercedes livery was beautiful and it was one of the best on the grid. And I wouldn't say it's one of the absolute best on the grid so far this year, but it still looks very good. And to the people complaining that it's still silver, stop complaining. They're literally called the Silver Arrows. They're not going to turn up with a car that's blue because, fuck it, why not? It's Mercedes-Benz. All of their Formula One cars are going to be silver. So I don't know why people even bother complaining about it, because it's not worth complaining about. It just isn't. I mean, yeah, they've got a bit of, light blue or kind of greenish, on the side pod there, but again, they're the Silver Arrows. Of course, their car's going to be silver and the same color scheme basically as the years before. Just like Ferrari and just like Red Bull. I don't know why people complain about this all the time. It's so annoying. What do you expect? Again, for them to turn up with a completely red car, a blue car? I think the people complaining, honestly, are mentally childish. Because it is a very childish thing to complain about. And it's wanting, a team to bring, a new color scheme every season. It does remind me of a child. So I don't understand why people, really complain so much. But guys, with the first car we've looked at there, the probable world champion winning car, of course, we don't know what's going to happen yet, but they are the favourites, aren't they, Mercedes? What have you noticed about this 2020 car so far that I haven't quite noticed? Let me know right now in the live chat, and I'll come to you guys right now. So, let's see what you guys have to say. And if you guys mention any areas that I have missed, then I'll make sure to cut to one of the angles to better show it. So, let's have a look. Daniel Crawford, I like it, to be honest, looks the same. Nick, side pod inlets are much smaller than last year. I think I saw something about this on Twitter. Let me go back. Yeah, I think I saw something. I think it was Craig Scarborough, I think that's his name. Again, I probably mispronounced it, but I think he was asked, or he said, or someone said on Twitter that, you know, it was smaller. And yeah, you can definitely, when you look at it, you can tell. But let's cut to this picture for the moment. Let me look at the chat. Every car this year has smaller side pods. Well, we'll look at that in a moment. Another thing that we'll get into, which you'll start noticing once we get to Red Bull from that team on, the nose cones on not every car, but some of the cars are thinner, dramatically thinner than 2019. Sebastian, the red makes the car worse in my opinion. I don't think it makes the car... I mean, is it better? Probably not, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference at all. And if it is indeed a Niki Lauda tribute, I think it's a pretty good one. Right. Let's have a look at some other comments here. The red accents completely ruin this livery. Again, I don't think it really does. I think it's fine. And I think, honestly, people will get used to it. And it'll probably look, after half a season, people will probably think it looks pretty good. And again, it is 95% last year's livery. And last year's livery was probably the best Mercedes livery they've had in Formula 1. So, not really a bad livery at all from Mercedes. Right, let's find a couple more comments and then we'll go on to the team from Maranello, who of course are looking to beat this team to the World Championship. Bradley Williams, wing mirrors have casing. Let me go back a shot to see if we can see that. Yeah, you can see that. Just about, if you look closely enough. Let me find a couple more comments and then we'll move on to Ferrari. And pre-warning for anyone who hasn't seen the Ferrari yet, it's not dramatically different from anything you saw from them last year. It's not, yeah, it's nothing too drastic from Ferrari. JB, to be honest, the red doesn't make it look any different from last year. To be honest, again, you have to remember these cars obviously move at very high speed. So no one watching from trackside or even watching on TV is really going to notice it, are they? So it doesn't really matter how it looks stationary, because when a Formula 1 car's ever stationary on the track. Right, let me find one more and then we just move on to that final picture that shows the side pods better. The tighter side pods. Let me find one more comment if I can. Mostly an F1 fan. I prefer the 2019/20 Mercedes look to the previous years. The stars on the back are great. They are. They are very, very good. And yeah, if you compare it to, say, a 2015 or 2016 Mercedes car, this is miles better looking than that. Miles better. So, yeah, I think it's just people complaining. I mean, yeah, silver is not the most extravagant, wonderful colour in the world, but it's Mercedes. Of course, their, you know, colour of their car is going to be silver. Same with Ferrari. It's going to be red. So, don't understand why people really complain. But I think, you know what? We'll move on now to the Scuderia Ferrari team. And we'll start off with the front angle. Now, of course, the front wing last year was the main problem. And, of course, the suspension was also a big problem for that Ferrari car. But the front wing and the downforce on the front end was the biggest problem last year for this team. Now, yes, this is only the car that was launched at the actual launch in, I can't remember where it was in Italy, and I'm sure they'll bring extra pieces once we get to testing to the front parts of the car, the side pods, you know, the rear diffusers, all that stuff. But I do have a bit of a concern with this because it looks the same as last year. The front wing shape looks, again, the same as last year. And they do have that little, under tray that they have just under the nose cone. What was it? The upgrade they brought to Singapore. That upgrade is still on the car, obviously, because it did help them. But the front wing and nose cone as a whole looks like the same front wing and nose cone assembly as was on the 2019 car at the end of the season, of course. That does have me a bit worried that Ferrari have not learnt anything from their obviously failed concept. Again, who knows? Maybe in testing, they're going to bring, a completely new front wing and I will be talking absolute rubbish. But looking at that front angle, it doesn't look promising because it doesn't look like they've actually done anything different to a part of the car that was the main area of weakness. So, yeah, it really is a bit of a concern, that. And I'm just hoping that, the downforce that they need to find at the front end, maybe they can find it somewhere else. But when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. I was hoping for maybe a different looking concept to what they basically had in 2019. Now, we move on to the side shot. Now, the only other two big things, I guess, to really note of the 2020 Ferrari car is, one, the barge board layout is absolutely mental. When I saw the car, spinning on that stage when they revealed it, first thing I noticed was the layout of that part of the car. It is very detailed and it is a lot better looking than it was last year for Ferrari, and it looks as though they are really starting to, or at least attempting to, gain ground on Mercedes in that area, because that is an area of the car that Mercedes have been very good in the past year or so. So good to see Ferrari working hard on that area. And also, I might be able to get a better shot of it if I go one picture back. You can kind of see there, right below the T-cam, these wings, or fins that are pointing out from just above the airbox. Now, they're not a new concept. Those actually used to be on Formula 1 cars. And if I remember, if anyone wants to correct me, they can. But I think the last time that I can remember seeing that, noticeable way, I think the 2008 F1 cars had them. I think a BMW from that season had them quite distinctively. So that's another thing you can notice there. And it is similar in concept. But the Ferrari, again, if we go to this picture, which really shows the car, it doesn't look dramatically different from last year. And my hope is that they are saving a lot of what they're actually going to have on the car for testing. They're going to bring it to testing and put it on when they're actually going to run the car for real, instead of showing it before they've actually done any running. I'm hoping, that this is just a launch spec, which of course we've heard plenty of times before. But if it isn't, then yeah, not looking great, honestly. But I also just want to talk about one more thing, and that is the show itself that revealed the Ferrari car. Again, I cannot remember where it was. It was at some cathedral in, I guess, northern-ish Italy. I cannot remember exactly where it was, but the show itself was pure cringe. It was so bad. So we started off the show with an Italian DJ for some reason. And then we had, the presenters of the show coming on the stage. And then we had Louis Camilleri, who is the CEO, the boss, basically, of Ferrari, giving a creepy, slow 10-minute speech, I think it was, about how Ferrari are going to be this amazing force. And then I think after that, it was then Bonotto talking, the grown-up Harry Potter himself, talking about how, difficult the car was to design, how much hard work's gone into it, 2021, all that crap. And then we had some acrobatics, which if you freeze at certain points, it looks like the start of a porn film. And then what was after that? Then they finally said, right, we're going to reveal the car. And then a load of dancers came out and started dancing. And they took, a long time to actually get to the car reveal. Again, what an awful show. But it was not the worst car reveal show of the week, of the week before, as we'll get onto a lot later on. That one I'm referencing was horrible. But the Ferrari one was awful. It was really bad. And I just wanted it to end so bad. I mean, what is so hard to understand about, a car reveal show? I mean, you don't have to reveal it straight away, but, it shouldn't take you 30 minutes to get to the reveal. It really shouldn't. It should not take you that long to get to the actual reveal of a Ferrari Formula One car. So, yeah, it was an awful show. Thank God we won't have to talk about it or even think about it anymore. But I think I'll go back. Another picture. There you go. To show you a better angle of the Ferrari car. And guys, let me know. With the 2020 Ferrari, what have you noticed on the new car that I haven't noticed? And what did you think of the actual reveal show? I know some of you definitely watched it. There is no doubt about it. How could you miss it? The first proper car reveal of the year. And let me know what you thought of it. I thought it was terrible and at points hilariously bad. And as well, the translation person kept coughing during the stream, obviously to translate from Italian to English. So that was fun. But let's see what you guys have to say. Lappy says, I had it muted in the background. Eventually, I think towards the end, right before they revealed it, I had to mute it at some points because it was really getting bad. It really, really was. Al Martins, Ferrari has worked on the suspension to work the front area better. I heard Bonotto talking about that. And this is a better angle of the suspension. It was a big problem of last year. And actually, if you think back to one of the latter races of 2019, the US Grand Prix, the suspension design that they had was one of the main reasons they were so slow in that race. Charles Leclerc ended up, almost a minute off the race winner? And I think, the front suspension is just the way it is, the way it was, I guess, was the reason they were so slow in that race. And other certain races, the first race in Melbourne, the suspension was a problem there. So, hopefully they've fixed it a bit. I mean, they're not going to probably fix it entirely because it was quite a big problem. But as long as progress has been made in that area, then that's all you can really ask for. But, right. JB, a lot more red on the back, which I like, and the numbers look a lot clearer on the car. 2019 looked really scribbly. And I think someone made a point of this, that the 2020 car numbers look very similar to the car number fonts you would see on Ferrari cars in the 80s or the 90s. So I think it's kind of a tribute act, kind of, with the numbers, and they do look good. They do look good. Not amazing, but they do look good. For sure. Sebastian, I really hate black halos, especially on the Ferrari. I think I said this last year, that they shouldn't have gone away from the red halo they had in 2018, because I thought it really made the halo look better. And I'll be honest, when I watch the current F1 cars, I don't notice the halo really at all, but it does make it look a bit more seamless and makes it look better, within the whole car if you paint it the same color as the car. So I think if they're going to go for a better look, they should have gone again for red on the Halo device, but it doesn't really matter, does it? Right, let's look at some other comments here. The Ferrari reveal was the most cringeworthy thing I've ever watched. It wasn't the most cringeworthy thing I've seen, but it was pretty bad. I didn't expect it to be great because I knew, where they were performing the reveal. I thought, right, they're probably going to do a bit of music, bit of classical type of stuff. I didn't think it was going to be a great event, but I didn't think it'd be as bad as it was. It was properly bad. Daniel Crawford, that was banter. Right, let me find a couple more comments here if I can before we go on to Red Bull, who, out of the top teams, the Red Bull probably looks the most different to me anyway, out of the top three, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, it does look different aerodynamically. Ferrari not going to show their hand openly. Let's hope so. Because, of course, last year they showed it a bit too soon, and Mercedes didn't pull the sandbags off until Melbourne. Ed Campwell, great to see you, mate. And he does bring up a good point that I have actually noticed, that the rear packaging on this Ferrari is immensely tight. And you can see it there. It is very small, and definitely tighter looking to me than last year's Ferrari car. So, yeah, good to see that they're doing that. And I think as well, I don't think I have a good enough angle of it, but I believe they have now a similar rake to the Red Bull. I can't confirm that because I didn't quite, confirm that myself. If they do have a similar rake now to the Red Bull. But I remember hearing at the end of last year, towards, October, November time, that Ferrari were going to try and go more in the Red Bull direction in terms of concept of car design for 2020, which is a good thing, of course, because the Red Bull car aerodynamically has been good for years. But we'll see how it fares for the Scuderia. Carlos says X-Wing on the intakes, OS separated, and the mirrors are different. The mirrors, yeah, I think you can just about see it there. If I go back a picture, maybe we see it better. Yeah, they're kind of different. Again, not a massive change, but they are slightly different. JB, do you think with the amount of effort they're putting into the aero, do you think that will cost them in their engine department? If so, I think Vettel will do a lot better. He strives with a high downforce car. The thing is with Ferrari, they're that type of team that, last year, of course, their car was extremely low drag, very efficient in a straight line, but in the corners was not efficient at all. Ferrari are the type of team that would go the complete other direction and have a car that had high amounts of drag, was horrible in a straight line, despite a good, efficient power unit, but in the corners was efficient. Kind of similar to a 2018 McLaren, but not as bad, of course, because Ferrari's power unit is, in comparison to others, probably going to be better than the Renault was that season. But Ferrari are that type of team where they wouldn't correct it to a nice balance. They would go the complete other side of that and make it too draggy, if you know what I mean. And as you say, yeah, if they make it more of a downforce reliant car, then that will suit Sebastian Vettel, no doubt about it. He likes to drive cars that when you come out the slow corner, you can just stamp on the throttle and trust that the car is gonna, grip up. And he also likes cars that you can just throw at the apex and it does what it wants, or does what he wants, which is exactly what it had at Red Bull. That's what Vettel wants, and if they've designed it that way, then I guess he'll have a good season. But we'll see, of course, if that does happen. But let's now move on to the Red Bull RB16, powered, of course, by Honda. Now, this car, again, it does look a bit different in certain areas. The first area that you can notice is the front wing, and especially the front nose cone. The front nose cone, and I think I've got a better shot of it. There you go. This is a better shot of it. The front nose cone is a lot slimmer than last year. I should have got a picture of last year's Red Bull to do a comparison, but I didn't quite have enough time. But if you, in your mind, remember back to the 2019 Red Bull, the RB15, you can definitely tell that the nose cone of the Red Bull is noticeably slimmer than the Red Bull of last year. Will that help them? Who knows? But it actually, from a looks point of view, it does make the car look, I think, nicer looking, honestly. But I will say, with the front wing design, I think Red Bull have gone a bit more Ferrari with their front wing design. And that's a bit weird because, Ferrari's front wing design didn't really work out that much last year. So it'd be a bit weird for Red Bull to do that. But if you look at the front wing, it does look a bit more, to me anyway, like a Ferrari 2019 style front wing than what they had last year. And Red Bull's front wing last year looked a lot more like the Mercedes one than it did the Ferrari one. And of course, that's why the Mercedes and Red Bull was, on the front end, a lot better than the Ferrari, because their concepts worked and Ferrari's did not. Maybe Red Bull have tried the same concept and did it in a better way. Who knows? But kind of surprising they've done that. But the nose cone, for sure, you can notice, is a lot slimmer and it looks a lot better, honestly. And another thing you'll notice is where those fins next to the airbox and next to the T-cam were on the Ferrari, on the Red Bull, those are there, just about there. But on this shot, you can see... oh, no, they're not there, actually. No, they're not there. They're not there like the Ferrari. So, that is a bit of a difference. I thought they were. Sorry about that. But yeah, the front wing and the front part of the car, for me, is the biggest area of difference, I guess you could say, with the Red Bull. And I think the Red Bull definitely, aerodynamically, looks quite a bit different to last year's. Noticeably different, especially when you compare the Mercedes and Ferrari to their cars from last year as well. The Mercedes and Ferrari cars are probably, again, they're probably not showing everything they can, but I think, the Red Bull still, it does have a noticeable different look at certain areas of its car. And then if we go to the side shot again, if you look at the barge boards, immense amount of detail. They have worked hard on that, and that's why, of course, aerodynamically this car in the past few years has been so good, because that area has been so good for them, just like Mercedes and other teams. But other than that, there's nothing massive you can notice. I mean, from the mirrors, there's probably some new... yeah, you can see just about, there are some, I think, slight new additions around the mirrors. But other than that, there is nothing absolutely massive that you can notice in terms of difference between last year's Red Bull car and this year's Red Bull car. And by the way, I just want to mention two things before I come to you guys again to get your thoughts. One, it's good to see Red Bull, doing their first shakedown with the actual livery they're going to be using for the season, instead of a special one-off livery that gets everyone excited. Everyone's like, oh, please use this livery for the season. It's so great. And, oh, why can't Red Bull use this? When, personally, I don't really care about the special one-off liveries. I mean, they don't look too bad. They look all right. But obviously, Red Bull are not going to use them, because this colour scheme is the Red Bull colour scheme. And also, it's still one of the best looking colour schemes on the grid, without a doubt. It looks fantastic. So I don't see why Red Bull would ever want to use a special one-off livery on a more permanent basis. But yeah, good to see that they've launched the proper livery straight away. But another thing, or another point I want to make is it is great to see, and Mercedes did this as well, it's great to see a team, when they reveal their car, to also do a shakedown test on the same day, or basically at the same time as they reveal it, because it does show that you're ready for the new season. And I think, honestly, it's a proper way of revealing your car by actually driving the thing, not just showing it, in some computer generalized, mock-up. I think it's a much better way doing a proper shakedown. I know certain teams can't do it because, it's harder for them to be ready so soon for the new season, but I think if I was a team boss, for example, I would do my car reveals this way by actually driving, or, getting one of my drivers, whoever I hired, to drive the thing. Because I think that is the proper way to reveal a car, to actually drive it, instead of just showing it, of course, stood still. So great to see. And the Red Bull car is looking pretty good. Pretty good. And I think the best shot of it is this one, of course, Max Verstappen, who was driving the car at Silverstone on when was it? Wednesday? Was it Wednesday? I think last week. Yeah, it was. And yeah, it looks very good. Does the RB16. But guys, let me know in the chat, what areas of the Red Bull have you noticed that I haven't, and what do you think of the nose cone, the front wing, the colour scheme? Let me know in the live chat right now, and I'll come to you guys now and see what you guys have to say and what you think of it. And again, to me, it looks like it has the biggest difference out of the top 3 teams compared to the year before, and in terms of livery and look, I think the Red Bull car does look the best out of the 3. Doesn't mean it's going to win, though, of course. Looks, at the end of the day, don't matter if your results are great. Right. Let's look at some comments about this Red Bull. Much skinnier Mercedes-style nose on this car. Absolutely. Absolutely. JB classic Red Bull livery looks lovely as usual. It absolutely does. And again, those special one-off liveries they do, yeah, they look all right, maybe good at best, but the classic Red Bull livery is still stunning. So there's no reason to get rid of it, and you can guarantee that this livery will always be their livery because it looks so good. Especially the matting of it. It just makes it look even better. Right. Let's find some other comments here. This is Friedman. That is a thin nose cone. Absolutely. Let's find some other comments about this car. Ed Campwell says they've gotten rid of the multi-link front suspension. Also, and I think it was Craig Scarborough who said this on Twitter earlier, that they've got some kind of, with the suspension, some kind of steering arm system arrangement that he noticed. I couldn't quite present it to you because I think he only just did it this afternoon, but yeah, some interest around that, part of the car, for sure. Al Martins, I think Red Bull have worked on straight line speed, hence a smaller nose cone, less surface, less drag, and probably optimize the downforce of last year's car. Watch out for new parts and testing. Well, even though the Honda power unit is good enough, I guess, or maybe not good enough for a championship, but it's good enough to put Red Bull in strong positions. Yeah, maybe it wouldn't be a bad thing if they went for a kind of less drag concept to further enhance the straight line speed, because that's also another area of the Red Bull in the last couple years that, despite them being so quick at most of the races, they've still struggled in, is when we do come to an ultra high speed power track, Spa, Monza, Canada to a certain extent, Bahrain, no matter how good their car is through the corners, they just don't have that straight line speed to contend with the other two top teams. So maybe that's them just trying to combat that, which would be a good thing. Because if you look at last year, for example, in 2019, in the previous few races before Spa, Hungary, Hockenheim, Silverstone, Red Bull were on fire. Their car through the corners was right up there, fighting with Max Verstappen, with the Mercedes drivers of Hamilton and Bottas, and they were very, very quick. But then when we got to the two power tracks after the summer break, Spa and Italy, they were basically in the midfield or closer to that than they were to the, first place. So it was rather an area of concern. Maybe they've tried to address it. It would be good if they actually have, and hopefully they have, because that would propel them a bit closer with Max Verstappen to a world championship, or at least competing for it. And of course, that is the aim for Red Bull this season, is to contend for the championship, even though that's going to be very hard, of course, for them to do. JB, how did they do well in Brazil then, considering that's mostly power? I think that was mostly because of Honda, to be honest, because if you look at Toro Rosso as well, they were also very quick. So I think that was mostly to do with Honda. I don't think it was necessarily the car concept of the Red Bull. I think it was the Honda upgrade that definitely worked in those final few races. And another point is that, despite it being a power track, it is also at altitude. So the differences in the power units is not as dramatic as it would be in Italy or Spa. It's still, there are power differences, but it's not as dramatic as it would be at other races. But I think that was mostly down to Honda. But, if Red Bull have gone for a lower drag aerodynamic concept and Honda continue making progress, maybe climb ahead of Mercedes in terms of power, they could be very strong at those races. And then we wouldn't talk about them anymore as being weak, of course, at power tracks. Daniel Crawford, do you think Ferrari got caught cheating? They were so slow towards the end of the year. It's hard to say. I don't. Obviously you're talking about the power unit. I don't think Ferrari. I think if one of those areas of the car, or not areas of the car, one of the areas of the power unit that was illegal, that they had to alter, I don't think it was as dramatic as people think. Because if you look, for example, at the speed traps in the final race, for example, Ferrari was still right up the top or very close to the top. So I don't think it was as, again, dramatic as people make out. I don't think Ferrari were necessarily breaking the rules. And again, I don't think it's made that much of a difference to Ferrari. And I don't think it did at the end of last season. I think if you look at that verdict, I think came out during the US Grand Prix weekend. At the US Grand Prix, they were trying out a more aerodynamically efficient setup. So that's why their straight line speed was down, and Leclerc had an old power unit. Brazil, they were quick down the straights, but really slow in the middle sector and the final sector. Or not the final sector, the middle sector. And then in Abu Dhabi, that was just downforce. So it had nothing to do with their power unit not giving as much power as it used to. So, to answer your question, I don't think they did, really. Right, let's find a couple more comments, I think, on Red Bull. And then we'll go to a kind of a Q&A type of thing before we get into the rest of the teams. And in a minute, I'll have a drinks break as well. Jay Singh, hey bro, I'm such a fan of you. Keep doing your thing. Hope you'll be. Oh, I know you'll be big. Thank you very much for that. Bradley Williams, they've tightened the rear up again. Red Bull absolutely love doing that. Let me see if I've got a better shot of it. there you go. Red Bull, the kings of that. And they really started, or Adrian Newey was the one who kind of got that trend going. So, yeah, great to see again. But again, you look at that nose cone, it's so slim. So slim compared to last year. And again, they're not the only one to go for that. They're not the only one. Bat boot, Honda power unit is good. Let's just end it at that. Yeah, I mean, it's not amazing or great, but it's good enough for what they need, or what they needed last season. JB, they were competitive in Brazil, talking about Ferrari after they were accused of cheating, so I don't think they removed any cheating parts. Then Abu Dhabi and USA just didn't suit them. Yeah, I think people overreacted with that whole Ferrari were breaking the rules. I don't think they necessarily will, and I don't think they were really affected in the power unit department. Because again, at the final 3 races, when that technical verdict from the FIA came out about what you're allowed to and not allowed to do, 2 of the 3 tracks Ferrari were not going to do well at anyway. And they weren't power tracks. The only power track really where you could really tell was Brazil. And in Brazil, they were very quick in the first and third sector, but then losing a monumental amount of time in the middle sector. So, yeah, I don't really think it made, you know, that much of a difference. But I think it's about time we now do a bit of a Q&A before we get into the midfield. So let me just get this back up. There you go. This is just, of course, a slideshow of the cars so far. So, guys, for the next, say, 10, 15 minutes in the live chat right now, and you do it in the comment section as well if you're watching this after the stream is finished, let me know down below in the chat or comments what you thought of the, you know, cars, the big 3 cars so far. And if you want to ask me anything else, then make sure to do so. But I'm going to quickly have a drink, and then I'll come to you guys in just a moment. Right, I'm back. And you know what? Considering we have about 100 people watching right now live, which is quite good considering it's not a race weekend or a, you know, testing for, you know, me doing a stream, I may as well let you guys know of the plan of content between now and the final day of testing. So what I'm going to do, guys, for the testing days is this. I was originally thinking of doing a watch along for the entire day of testing, you know, morning and afternoon of every single day. But at the end of the day, when I think about it, it isn't quite, again, like I said at the start of the stream, it isn't quite what I want to do. Because testing, and I was at testing the second test last year in Barcelona, testing can be quite boring, especially if you're watching it the entire day, because the teams most of the time are not doing anything that's worth really, you know, getting all excited about. The best way to describe testing, or the days of testing, is the, you know, the whole day, and what the teams do is basically like the first half an hour of practice 1, except it's all day, every day of testing. That's the best way I can describe how testing is. So I am not going to stream all day, every day of testing, but I will be doing streams and watch-alongs for testing, but not again for the whole day. It'll either be me doing a stream for the morning session or the afternoon session on all of the 6 days. So for example, tomorrow morning I will be live for day 1 and the first morning session of, and the first 4 hours of pre-season testing. But then I won't be live in the afternoon because I actually have stuff to do in my private life. So I won't be around in the afternoon. But then on Thursday and Friday, I will be doing a watch along for the afternoon sessions on day 2 and day 3 of pre-season testing. And then the week after, I'll let you guys know, say, closer to the day what I'm actually going to do, like, what part of the day I'm going to be live for testing. But there is no way I'm going to be live for, 9 hours straight, because it will be incredibly tedious and boring by the end of it, and I'll probably get knackered. So, yeah, I'm not going to be streaming for that long. I think definitely the most I could do is, do an afternoon session on one day and then the next day do a morning session, stuff like that. So that's what I'm going to do. Tomorrow morning, don't forget to join me guys live at 7:30 in the morning, UK time. That's half an hour before testing starts that day. And then I'll be live until 12 p.m. when the morning session finishes. And then also what I'm going to do is this week, for the first 3 days of testing during the first test, at 7 p.m. UK time, I will upload a recorded video reviewing the day's action of testing. I don't know how long the videos will be, but I'm going to record them basically as if it was a stream. But yeah, they will go out at about 7 p.m., which is, a couple hours after testing finishes that day? So not too long after. And yeah, it'll just be a review of the day's action, what the team's got up to, who broke down, who set quick times. Of course, we'll look at the lap times and look at who I guess is doing okay if you correct the tyre differences and stuff like that. So that's the plan. And then, yeah, for the next week's second test, it's probably going to be similar. I'm going to do maybe, I'll be live one morning, and then the next day I'll be live in the afternoon and stuff like that. And then still do a recorded video at 7 p.m. that night reviewing testing that day. But when it comes to tomorrow, again, live at 7:30 in the morning UK time. So if you're going to work and school or college or whatever, and you cannot watch testing, then make sure to put on my stream and listen along, and then you can keep up to date with testing in the morning with what is going on. And also Alfa Romeo are revealing their livery for 2020 as well, so you can keep across that as well. And then, yeah, 7 p.m. later that day, 7 p.m. UK time, 2 hours after testing tomorrow finishes, I will upload a review of what happened during the day. So there you go. Let's now get into your comments. JB, will you still be doing watch-alongs during the early races? Australia, Japan, Vietnam. I'll be doing a watch-along for every race. Don't worry about that. I'm not going to be like, I can't be bothered. It's, 7 a.m. If an F1 race is on, it doesn't matter what time it is, I will be up. Even if I wasn't doing this, I would still be up at 3, 4 in the morning watching Formula 1, because that's just the way I am. So don't worry about that. I will be doing, qualifying and race watch along for Australia, Japan, Vietnam, all those races. But for testing, again, I won't be covering all of it live because it can be very tedious and boring at times. So I'm not going to overdo it when, again, it'll be hard to fill that many hours with just me talking absolute bullshit. JB, next week when I'm back at college, I'll listen to your streams in the middle of the lessons. I wouldn't do that. Let me find some questions or comments here from you guys. Joseph Friedman, I still think the Mercedes is the car to beat. Well, of course we don't know because the cars haven't ran yet, but because the regulations for 2020 are the same as last year, we should have a similar pecking order to last year. So, of course, top 3, then McLaren, Renault, and then a tight battle between AlphaTauri, Racing Point, Alfa Romeo, and Haas to a degree, and then Williams cut adrift. That's what it kind of should be. Now, in terms of who finishes at the top of the top 3 battle and who wins out of McLaren, Renault, that's we'll have to wait and see on that. But in terms of what battles are going to be happening this season, it's probably going to be the same as last season, which is a bit sad. But again, the regulations are stable, so I don't really see any cause or any reason for it to be dramatically different. Like, it's probably going to be on in 2021. Right, let me find a couple more comments before we go on to the midfield. And of course, we'll start off with McLaren in a moment. Leon, who do you think will surprise us most next season, driver or team? I'll do both, driver and team. Driver, I'm going to say... I'm going to say Lance Stroll. That's going to really be a surprise to you guys because of what I've said about him. But Lance Stroll, because the Racing Point, I think, will absolutely be better this year because it'll be developed better. And Stroll, as much criticism as we'll give him, he is improving as a driver. There is no doubt about it. He is getting better. So I think Lance Stroll will be the surprise of the season. I'm not saying he's going to finish 8th in the Drivers' Championship or anything, but he will surprise people in a positive way. And then team, it's hard to say because again, I think it will stay the pecking order kind of the same. Probably Racing Point, because again, this time last year they didn't really have a full-on 2019 car. And if you actually listen, and we'll get on to Racing Point later on, of course, you listen to what they were talking about at their car reveal in terms of targets for the season, they are very confident. Very confident. Stroll was talking about how podiums could happen. Otmar Safnauer was talking about how we absolutely target 4th place in the Constructors, and we think it is absolutely possible. And not only did he say 4th in the Constructors, but he said a strong 4th place, which to me means clearly 4th, like they were in 2017. So they are very confident, and I think they are a dark horse in the midfield for sure. So yeah, look out for Racing Point. And not only Stroll, but Perez as well. Because I think Perez is on for another very strong season. And he had a very strong season last season, considering what he had to drive. Hello to Patrick, who says hello from Illinois. I can't pronounce that park because I don't want to butcher the name of it. Stroll hater thinks Stroll surprised the world is surely ending. Yeah, it definitely is. Chris says Sergio Perez is his pick for best of the rest. I don't think he will be best of the rest, but I think he will definitely finish top 10 in the Drivers' Championship. I have no doubt about that at all. Because again, the car will be better. It'll be consistently strong over the season. And Perez, we know what Perez gives. He gives consistently good performances. So definitely a top 10 Drivers' Championship season. Hopefully for him, maybe even better. Maybe a top 8. Who knows? JB, I think Ocon will surprise. He may match Ricciardo in qualifying. Haas, I think, will really surprise, or maybe Williams. With Esteban, I think he is in for a very, very topsy-turvy season. I think he will start the season off very slow. Kind of because of car, but also because he hasn't been in Formula 1 for a year. And I know you'll say, well, he's still a great driver. It's only been a year, but he hasn't done anything in a year. He's done, a few test days for Mercedes, but other than that, he hasn't really done any proper racing. And the midfield is a lot more competitive than it was when he left it. I mean, look at the drivers that have come into the midfield pack since he left. Daniel Ricciardo, for example, Kimi Räikkönen. 2 race-winning drivers. One of them, of course, a world champion. One of the greats of the sport. The midfield is a lot stronger than it was when he left it. And some of the younger drivers that have come into Formula 1, either, as he was at Force India or when he took the year out, are getting better all the time. Lance Stroll's improving. Norris, obviously, very good. Albon, or not Albon. Why did I say Albon? I kept thinking he was at AlphaTauri for some reason. But, the competition, as I'm saying, in the midfield is stronger than it was in 2018 or 2017. So I think he's going to be in for a bit of a shock. I think he will pick it up again. I think first 10 or 11 races, he'll probably struggle. He'll pick up, say, a few points. He'll have 2 or 3 points finishes, probably at most. And then once he gets up to speed properly and the Renault develops well over the season, which it should do, then by the time we get to the final 8 or 9 races, I think Ocon will be fine. I think he'll be then regularly finishing in the top 10. But the start of the season, I expect him to be quite a bit, outside of where Daniel Ricciardo's going to be. And I don't think he'll be right up to speed straight away. So if you are an Ocon fan, don't expect too much straight away, because again, he has took a year out and the midfield is a lot more competitive than it was when he left it. Right. I think now it is about time we moved on to the midfield. And let's go to what I think is, as I'll talk about more so in a moment, the best looking car on the grid. It is the McLaren, the MCL 35, I think it is, for 2020. And what a car this is. It looks so beautiful. The front nose cone, again, in a similar way to Red Bull, is slimmer than it was last year, quite a bit slimmer. The front wing design is again, a bit more so like a Ferrari concept than a Mercedes one. So interesting to see them. McLaren, maybe, again, they're trying the same thing as Red Bull, trying to go a bit more low drag to help their straight line speed. But also, from this shot, you can see the amount of detail in the barge boards. Look at the amount of detail behind the front tyres. It is incredible. Absolutely incredible. But I think the biggest thing to notice here really is the nose cone and the, I guess, how much slimmer it is compared to last year. But this McLaren just looks so good. The aerodynamic pieces, it looks great. A lot more detailed than, say, this time last year. It really does look very, very good. And if I come onto this side shot, you can see the barge board area a bit more. And again, you've got the boomerang wing in there. You've got all the pieces alongside the edges of the car. It just looks so good. And I'm going to say it now. It is the best looking car of the season. When I first saw this, I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. And I said on Twitter, I did a Twitter post, quickly posting the picture of the new car saying, ladies and gentlemen, I present you sex on wheels. Because I'm telling you, this is that good. It is immensely looking. It is. I can't find the right words, honestly, to describe how nice this looks. The orange and the blue together in the way they've done it, it looks so nice. The only thing that could have made this car look any better was if they put a sponsor on this blue bit on the side pod. That's the only thing missing, and it does look a bit vacant. Without a sponsor there. And I think if they put a sponsor like, say, for example, Dell Technologies, where it is up there on the engine cover, if they put that in bigger letters on the side pod where the blue is, it would look even better. But it still looks very good. I absolutely love it. Great livery. Honestly, one of the best McLaren liveries of the 21st century, in my opinion. Definitely better for me than the Vodafone McLaren cars, which look beautiful, but I think this looks better, honestly. And it's right up there with the early 2000s McLarens, which I love a lot. So, yeah, great looking McLaren. It is so good. So, so good. And with the orange and the blue, I mean, the colours aren't the same, but it does kind of look like a early to mid 2000s Renault, if you know what I mean. If you imagine the orange as being yellow, it does kind of look similar to a mid-2000s Renault in terms of where they put the blue. It's kind of got that similar-ish look to it. And of course, that car was beautiful. So, yeah, great car. Great car. And I cannot wait to see how good this car will be. Of course, when testing gets underway and when the season gets underway as well. But guys, let me know in the chat, what do you think of this car? For me, this is the best livery in Formula 1 right now, without a doubt. And when I saw it, straight away, I knew there was nothing that was going to beat this. It's just so, so nice. And I'm going to leave that shot up because that's the best angle of this McLaren car. But let's see what you guys have to say. Rooksfoot looks a bit, or he just trying to correct what he's saying. I think he's just made a spelling mistake. But I think what he's saying is it's lacking a bit of sponsorship. Again, that's the only problem, is this blue part on the side pod. If they had a big sponsor, you know, big lettering on that blue part of the side pod, then it would look even better. That's the only thing you could say that's missing. But other than that, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful racing car. And if it goes like it looks, it's going to be a good year. Ed Cantwell says reliability will be a problem with the packaging plus Renault engine. Yeah, it's not going to be... Well, it's going to have its ups and downs. McLaren are not going to, you know, be every race 7th and 8th or 6th and 7th if Alex Albon is still not performing that well. But I think if you as well listen to what Andreas Seidel was saying at the car reveal, McLaren, this car will put them a good step ahead of where they were last year in terms of just raw speed. But realistically, this will probably just keep them where they were at the end of last season, which is exactly what they need, really, for 2020. So it is a good step to me, or it looks like a good step. Whether it is a good step or not on the track and whether the lap time shows it's a good step, we'll see. But it does look very good. Someone saying that in some photos they have a better tomorrow in white on that blue side pod. I haven't seen that, but if I do, I'll make sure to get a picture of it, maybe show it tomorrow. But even that, it makes it look even better. But without it, still looks great. Still looks great. Volpers, who needs sponsors when you look that good? True. It is true. Even if he took all the sponsors away on the side of the car, it would still look beautiful. It's that good. Right. Let me find some other comments here about the McLaren. JB loved the blue on the McLaren. I think that's the biggest thing. It's the addition of the blue. They've added it very nicely, and it's very well... Again, very well designed delivery. And the addition of blue is... They've done it in the right way. They've done it very, very well. It's so good how they've added the blue in that way. Right. Let me find a couple here that I haven't mentioned. Chaz having a crush on a car. Now I've seen everything. There's JB. That McLaren car is well fit. I would love to sleep with that machine. It is a very, very nice looking car. I mean, last year's car was a good looking car, but this, honestly, I think is a lot better. That's how good this is. And I just hope it goes again as well as it looks, because it looks beautiful. But other than the color scheme and livery, guys, when it comes to the aerodynamic, parts of the car, is there anything you've noticed that I haven't? Let me know in the chat or the comments. I'll cut back to this front shot. And again, look at the detail on the barge board on both sides. It is immense. Absolutely immense. And again, you can see there, if you think back to last year's McLaren, you can really tell the difference in the nose cone width. So, yeah. I think most of the aerodynamic changes, or at least the ones you can notice, do come on the front angle of the McLaren car. Daniel Crawford, AlphaTauri looks the best. Well, you better wait until I get onto that. Right, let me find a couple final comments on this McLaren. Try to make sure I get F1's comment in on this car. My favourite livery is the McLaren. It's the only exciting one on the grid. And McLaren did the best launch. And that's another thing. McLaren, the actual car launch, show was good. They, once the time came, whipped the covers off, talked about it with the drivers, took some pictures. There you go. If you're not going to, do it how I said a moment ago with Red Bull and drive it, then the next best thing is to just do that. Show the car, talk about it, get the drivers out, how excited are you for the season, all that crap. That's how it should work if you're going to do it without, again, driving the car on the racetrack when you reveal it. So, yeah, it was good. Nothing special, but definitely better than the Ferrari car reveal show, which was horrible, and the AlphaTauri one, which, don't worry, we will get on to very, very soon. Cannot wait to talk about that. Ruxford, steep rake. I'll leave that up to you guys. You decide whether it is or not. And JB says, McLaren is now such a great team overall. They've completely changed between 2018 and 2019. It is amazing how the mood around the team is completely different. As you say, end of 2018, it was so bad. It was incredibly toxic. Of course, Fernando Alonso there. The car was horrible. No one could seemingly do anything right. The team was falling apart. And now, after 2019, a great season with two young, hungry, funny drivers and a great partnership. Now McLaren are on the up again. I will say again, like I said in my McLaren video, which, by the way, if you haven't seen, the McLaren into 2020 video and, how they're going to do this season, make sure to go and see that. It's on the channel. I uploaded it, I think, a couple of weeks ago. I'm not going to get too hyped with McLaren in terms of the on-track performance because it was 2019 great, but it was one good year. One bad year is still very close to happening. They could easily go back to how they were in 2018. All it takes is a couple missteps along the way and they're back to where they started. So that's why I don't get too hyped up about McLaren. That's why I say that at the earliest, McLaren are going to win a race probably in 2024, because that's how long it's going to take, realistically, for them to get even back into that, contending type position. So they need to be realistic. And I think they are, McLaren. And it is good to see that they are being realistic, because I think a big pitfall of McLaren a couple years ago was that they were so unrealistic in their expectations. So hopefully that new approach of being realistic does, help them get back to where they want to be. But let's go on to Renault. And well, there's not much to really see with Renault, I'm afraid. So here's what happened. Renault did a season launch event in Paris on the 12th of February, I think it was, which was this time last week. Now, the point of these shows is to reveal your car. That is the only reason people are interested. No one, I can guarantee you, as much as people like Daniel Ricciardo and Esteban Ocon, and I don't really think anyone likes Cyril Abiteboul, but you know what I mean. they're there to see the car. The only reason there was interest in that season launch event was because they thought, right, we're going to see the new 2020 Renault car. Instead, they showed glimpses of the Renault car, meaning just a computer-generized model of what the Renault car is going to look like, which was a complete waste of time. And they didn't even show the whole car. They just showed a couple small shots like this one, you know, where it kind of shows the slimness of the front wing, or the front nose cone rather. And then this, which shows absolutely fuck all. And, you know, they came out with an explanation after saying, oh, we didn't want to bring a show car. That's what we've done in the past couple years. If you don't bring your, you know, launch spec or your first, you know, I guess, edition of your 2020 car, it doesn't look good on you at all. It doesn't, because what it shows is that your car isn't actually ready and you as a team are not ready yet, which is actually the case, or was the case. The reason Renault didn't have their car there was because it wasn't built yet. This is the Renault Works team, and they don't have a car ready by mid-February to be at an event in Paris. I mean, they didn't need to think to move. All they needed was for the car to be sat still. So, you know, just an awful way to start the season with the car not being built yet. Again, I stress, this is the Renault Works team, not the Hispania Racing team. Can't believe they weren't ready. And again, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be slow this season. Doesn't mean that they're going to be, again, terrible, but it's not a good look. It's not a good look at all. And if you compare it, say, to last year, look at Williams. Weren't ready, and look what they ended up with. I'm not saying Renault are going to be that bad, but if you're less ready than other teams at this point of the year, then it's not a good look, and it doesn't represent you well, you know, in the media. So, absolutely terrible. Terrible event. Waste of time. And next year, actually reveal your car. Don't just show us glimpses of a computer car, because no one cares about that. So, guys, the only existing shot of the Renault car is this, which was took today. This is not an official photo took by Renault. This is one of, you know, just someone who was there on one of the filming days to get a sneaky little shot of the Renault car. And from what we can notice, the front nose cone is slimmer. You can absolutely tell that, and you could tell it kind of on the computer model car they showed glimpses of. But yeah, nothing really to see. Again, what is the point in saying, or, you know, trying to get people hyped up for the reveal of your car and then you don't reveal it? That's the whole point of the event, is to show your car. That's the only reason people care. If you don't show it, then why should anyone care? It's just such a waste of time, honestly. Such a waste of time. And I don't understand why Renault even bothered having a launch event. Just say, you know, we're going to reveal it at testing. Just say that. There's nothing wrong with that. Mercedes did it in 2014 and 15, I think. There's nothing wrong with it. So just say, we're going to reveal it at testing. Don't say, oh, well, you know, the 12th of February, da-da-da-da-da-da. No. Just reveal it when you're going to reveal it. And I'll get onto that more later with Haas F1 as well, because I was very pissed off about them saying they're going to reveal their car on the day of testing and then reveal it a week and a half, 2 weeks before. What's the point? Just pick a date and do it. Don't pick a date and then reveal it 2 weeks before, because fuck it, why not? So frustrating. Anyway, is there anything, guys, with Renault or the Renault car that you notice? Let me know in the chat what you think. I mean, there's nothing really that major to say. There's nothing really to show, because they just won't show anything. Renault's launch was ridiculous. It wasn't even a launch. It was just them talking about how the season's going to go. Who cares? Who cares? Yeah, 2020 Renault car launch was a joke. Absolutely. Says Joseph Friedman. And he also says, just show the damn car at a car launch. What's the point of calling it a car launch if you don't show the car? Exactly. That's what these events are for, to show your car. That's the main event of the show. If you take away the main event of a show, no one's going to be interested. That goes for anything in show business or any type of media type event. If you don't have, if you advertise the main event and then you don't have it, or you just don't have it when you should, then no one's going to be interested. So what's the point? What is the point? Again, if they'd said, we're going to reveal it at the first test or the first day of testing, fine. Completely fine. No problem with that. Some teams do it, some teams don't. But it just felt like a fraud, that event. An absolute fraud. It was just a complete waste of time. And waste of money. Yeah, doing a Williams. Not as bad as Williams, but still, not great, is it? Ed Cantwell. The 2020 Renault reveal drawn by Samuel, age 4. Right, let me find one final comment on Renault and then we'll move on. Would have been a better reveal. Probably would have. JB... F1 team's mind, car launch equals fashion show, logically was mind, car launch equals car... Exactly. Exactly. And you know what? Thinking about that, Ed, I'm surprised the team hasn't done that. Just got a kid to draw the car, and then that's the car reveal. I mean, that'd be a great troll. Just to get a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old to just draw the car, and then that's the car. And then you've got to make out which bit is most accurate. That'd be a great troll. Let's find one other comment if I can. I bet the car was designed by the Daniel Avocado Kid. Oh my. Anyway, I think we should move on from Renault. Just total waste of time and space. The whole car reveal period for Renault. Hopefully that's not a sign of things to come. Anyway, let's get on to Alpha Tauri, the new name in Formula One. And they, of course, revealed their car at a very extravagant event in, I think it was in Austria, a fashion show. I think it was in Austria. It was a fashion show, let's be honest, guys, in Austria. But then they did some testing at Misano, showing that they definitely are ready for 2020. And aerodynamically, doesn't really look that much different at all from last year's car. The front nose doesn't look slimmer. There are some capes, I think, just about on the side of the nose. Hard to see, though, with the colour scheme. The front wing design, kind of the same. Again, nothing really, that drastic. And then if we look at this side shot, the barge board area, you can see there's a bit of development there, but it's hard to see again because of the way the shade is and stuff like that. But this really does look like a 2019 car in 2020 livery. There's nothing really to see here. Again, there's small, parts of it that you can notice that are different, but nothing massive, if I'm honest, with the 2020 Alpha Tauri F1 car. Now, I just want to, before we get into the fashion show, let's get into really the livery of this Alpha Tauri. And I'll go to this shot. Now, this will go down like a lead balloon. I absolutely hate this livery. I hate it. It is so bland and boring. And the whole waiting for the car to be finally revealed at the show, it wasn't worth the wait. It really, really wasn't. And I'll go back another picture because I think it shows it better, this one. It's the colours. They're just not fitted in correctly. By the way, for anyone thinking that the rear of the car is black, it is dark blue, but it's so dark blue that it doesn't stand out. So it just looks black and white, this car. Thus why, to me, it looks boring as hell. It does look absolutely boring. Awful livery. Definitely cannot hold a candle to the Toro Rosso livery of last year or the years before. I really don't like this livery at all. And in fact, this might be a surprise, but I think this is one of the worst liveries I've seen since I've started watching Formula One. And that was what, end of 2011? I really don't like this livery. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. It's so bland and boring. I don't get the hype around it. I think the car aerodynamically, though, in terms of the way the car looks with the side piles, the barge boards, the front wing design, looks fine, but the color scheme is horrible. It is absolutely horrible. And again, I hate it. And it won't look better in sunshine. It may look better at nighttime, but I'm not going to ever like this. And if this is what we got from this team coming forward, then, well, I'll be wishing that Toro Rosso comes back, because this is so much worse. Absolutely awful. And for me, this is the worst livery on the grid. Now, you guys may think I'm joking, but I'm honestly telling the truth. And you can ask Nib as well, because I remember messaging him right after the car reveal, and I said, this is, not going to lie, the worst car livery I've seen this year. It's awful. I'm honest to God, guys, I hate it. It looks awful. Right, let me just read a couple comments to see what you guys have to say about my opinion of the livery. But yeah, I really don't like it. And it's not one of those things where, like, I had an initial reaction and I'm determined to keep it. I had my initial reaction, which wasn't good, but the more I look at it, the more it doesn't get any better. It don't get worse, but it don't get better. It's just kind of a bland, meh kind of livery. Doesn't stand out at all. Right, let's look at some look at some comments about my opinion of that. Joseph Friedman, it's the Zebra Car of F1. I didn't actually think of that. I see what you mean. It's not quite that way, but I see what you mean. Kind of. Chaz, get in the bin. Can't believe you're saying this. Again, this is... I'm not joking. I'm being totally serious, guys. I do not like this livery. I really don't. I'm absolutely 100% serious. Chaz, this is the worst thing you've said since the day the channel was created. Maybe, in your opinion, but... yeah. There's not one part of it to me that looks good. I mean, maybe the what do you call it? The text on the front wing looks okay at best, but just overall, no. Right, let me find a couple other comments ripping me to shreds. Mate, why are you repeating the awful, horrible, boring, and so on? As opposite, I think the livery is great. Please have some respect. I don't need to have respect for it. It's just a car livery. I mean, it doesn't matter how it looks. As long as it is quick, I don't really mind. If this car is super quick, then I can bear looking at it. But that's my opinion. It's just, I just don't like it at all. perhaps they achieved their goal. Like it or not, people are talking about it. Job done. Yeah, but you know. Anyway, it's just my opinion. I just don't like that color scheme of dark blue and white. It's just not interesting to me. Mr. Random Guy Chaz, you need a stronger prescription on your glasses, mate. It's very unique. Just because it's unique doesn't mean anything. I mean, you know, the McLaren car, for example, it's unique looking, but it's genuinely the way they've got the colours fitted at certain parts of the car and together, it just looks good. This, I think it's mostly the colours. I just don't think the colours fit well on a Formula 1 car, white and dark blue. I don't dig it. I really don't. Right, let me find a couple more, and then we'll get into Joseph Powell. What looks good to you? Please tell us. Let me just find it. Not that. There you go. That looks good. That looks very good. But this, again, I just don't like it. It's just boring. Really boring. Ed Cantwell says, best looking in my opinion, Williams BMW vibes. I didn't actually think about that when I saw it, but yeah, you're right. The white and dark blue. Yeah, I guess. But again, I think, like I've said, the way they've matched it on the car and put it in certain areas just doesn't overall look like a good looking car. With that Williams BMW, they put it in a way where it looked overall good, but I just don't enjoy this look. And I also don't like the way they put Honda on the side pod there. I just don't like how they've done that. Like, it stands out a bit too much. But yeah, I just don't like it. Right. Let me see. Gina agreeing with me. There you go. Someone agrees with me. Says, I don't like it. It's ugly in my opinion. I've seen, by the way, I'm not the only one who thinks this. There's plenty of people out there that don't like it or think it's boring. So I'm not the only person. I think, yeah, the majority do like it, but, you know, that's their opinion. But I just don't like the color scheme. JB, I'll never forgive you for this, mate. I have a question. Please consider to rate this livery when car is in action, moving fast on the track. Is your opinion the same? I don't think my opinion... I mean, let's say it improves if I see it on TV. I don't think it's going to improve a lot. I think maybe slightly. But I still don't think it'll improve. Maybe it won't be the absolute worst on the grid, livery-wise. But it won't be a good livery, in my opinion, no matter what happens. And I'm just going to say it, every day of the week, I would take last year's Toro Rosso livery over this. Every day of the week. Right. Let me see. We've got everyone's comments on the livery. Rooksfoot says front looks okay, but side one looks hideous. The best angle of it is indeed the front. The front, if you look at it from the front angle, it does. That's the best look that you can get of the car. But from the side angle, to me, it just doesn't look good. Anyway, enough about that. Let's quickly rant. Well, I've ranted enough about the livery being awful, but the show itself, what were they thinking? I know AlphaTauri, you know, they've renamed it because they want to advertise their fashion brand and all that shit, but they were literally trying to drive every single human being who was consuming that stream insane. All it was was a load of robot-looking people and a dancing guy, which was hilarious, waving a flag around, which honestly looked so... Oh, it was so cringeworthy. That guy waving that flag around. Don't even know what he was trying to achieve. But it was just a bunch of robot-looking people walking around frustratingly slowly and organised around a stage for half an hour. We want to see the car. We don't care about the fashion. Look, this is the thing. I'm not saying you can't advertise it at all, but do it after. Don't need to do it before for half an hour and drive people to insanity. That is literally what they did. And also another thing I need to say, the race suits I also don't like. But I don't like it, or I like it more rather than the livery of the car, but I still don't like it. As I was saying though, that car reveal show was horrifically bad. Horrifically bad. The actual F1 stream at one point had 2,000 more dislikes than likes because it was so infuriatingly slow, and it was, no pun intended, being done at walking pace. Just why would you put people through that? Again, I understand you want to, advertise your clothing brand. I get it. But you don't have to do it for that long and drive people to the point where they probably hate, the brand. It was so infuriating. And I know you guys, some of you probably would have been watching the car reveal show. I was watching it. I didn't watch from the very start. I think I tuned in about 5 minutes in. And even by then, the live chat was saying, come on, reveal the car, because they were just doing the same thing over and over again, walking back and forth in different clothes. And, then, just as you thought they were going to reveal the car, this guy comes out. And you think, right, here we go. He'll reveal the car. No, he starts waving a flag around and dancing at the same time for what seemed like an eternity. Just come on, honestly. Don't put us through that every year, AlphaTauri. Please don't, because people are just going to avoid any type of video that shows the car reveal event, because that was horrifically bad. Way worse than the Ferrari reveal. The Ferrari one was bad. That was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my entire life. It was so bad. I wanted it to end the minute I started watching it. It was so bad. Let's see what you guys say, though. About the show. AlphaTauri should hire Lewis Hamilton. His designs are way better. Joseph Friedman, I haven't seen the AlphaTauri car reveal, and I'm glad I haven't. Well, if you want to break something, if you want to get a bit mental, if you want to get in that type of mindset, then watch that, because that will drive you insane. The repetitiveness was what drove me insane. And every time where it was like, you thought maybe they're going to reveal it this time, and then there was another 5 minutes of walking. I was literally shouting at the top of my voice, like, oh, come on. Like, get on with it. It's a car reveal, not a fashion show. Faust, it was the show that turned you off the livery. It didn't help, but the livery still on its own is not good looking in my opinion, but it certainly didn't help. But I can promise you I wouldn't have liked it anyway, because I just don't like those colours together in that way. But the worst thing about the whole thing was definitely the show itself. The livery is bad enough in my opinion, but the show itself, I think everyone can agree, was cringe at its finest. JB, I didn't see the stream, but from what I heard, it was pretty bad. Pretty bad is a compliment. It was so bad. It was... At one point, I was laughing because I was like, this cannot continue. This cannot get any worse. And it kept getting worse. That's how bad it was. Volpers, they did do teaser false start. Yeah, they did it like 3 or 4 times where you thought, right, here we go, and no. And there was a couple times, weren't there, where they started doing this kind of effect, like the car was electrified or something, and then it went back to another 10 minutes of walking. It's like, what was the point of that? No, just show the car. Don't be like, oh, we're going to show it. Oh, no, 10 minutes more of walking and wasting time and people waving flags and dancing in a really weird and awkward way. Yeah, it was just bad. Is it even the car there, or is it just a light show trick? I think JB was is saying in the chat, I bet Albon was glad he's not part of this team. He's probably laughing his arse off. I think they cut to the crowd a couple times. I think even the crowd was like a bit, oh, this is not good. This is not good. So, and as well, David Coulthard, I think, was presenting the show, which made it even weirder. Why is he presenting a fashion show? Literally one of the least fashionable people. And he just randomly turned up at once the car got revealed. I don't know if he was there before, but yeah, just terrible. Anyway, I think we should move on. Best thing to do. And we'll go on to the Racing Point. Now, this car was revealed yesterday in Austria. By the way, great backdrop. Look at that. That's a great way to reveal a car, not a fashion show. Yeah, the car itself was revealed, again, yesterday in Austria, but I don't think this is much of a 2020 car, if I'm being honest. I mean, the front nose cone you can kind of notice is slimmer. Again, similar to Red Bull, McLaren and Renault. The barge board area has a bit more detail, but other than that, there's not that much to say about the Racing Point, and I think a lot of this was a bit of a show car, honestly. I mean, Racing Point, they sound very confident. Again, targeting 4th in the Constructors, wanting to probably get podiums and all that stuff. But, yeah, this car, it just doesn't... I mean, you can notice differences, but it's nothing to get you out of your seat and to get you like, oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. It's just... It kind of looks like a minor upgrade on last year. Kind of the upgrade you'd expect. So, yeah, nothing too out there. And the livery... I think actually the livery looks a slightly... it looks a tad better than last year. A tad, I'll add. It's only a tad better, but... Yeah, overall, nothing much to see, really. But then again, Racing Point don't ever tend to go for the big, extravagant car reveals where their car looks completely different. We tend to see a completely different car at testing and then the first race from this team. So, yeah, nothing much to see. But again, more detail on the barge boards. And if I go back, you can see here the nose cone definitely slimmer than it was last year. But other than that, not a massive difference. And the rear end looks a bit slimmer, but not a massive difference on what they produced in 2019. Hopefully, though, it goes a lot quicker. But guys, yeah, what do you think of the Racing Point? You know, the colour scheme, the nose cone. And if there are any other aerodynamic pieces I have missed, then let me know right now, and I'll make sure to get up a better picture of them or better angle of them. As I'll go back to that. Aussie saying it looks similar to previous years. Let's look at some other comments on this Racing Point. Ed Campwell. Can't wait for the Stone Island F1 reveal where two football firms just have a fight. The diagonal BWT logo on the side ruins the livery completely. I see what you mean, but I don't mind it. I think it looks all right. It's not a great livery. I wouldn't say I've ever, loved the pink panther type, thing they've gone for, but it looks all right. It's nothing special, nothing awful. Aussie, where do you think Racing Point will finish this season? I think I did my early 2020 predictions, I think a couple months ago in a podcast, and I think I said 6th in the Constructors. Until testing, that's all I can say. 6th, which would be an improvement, of course, on 2019, where they finished in 7th. But also, not only do they come out from the event saying, 4th place, here we come, all that. As you guys will know, if you watched the last podcast and you've been keeping across the news, Racing Point will become the Aston Martin Formula 1 team in 2021, next year. And I think Otmar Safnauer has said that Racing Point and Aston Martin are already working closely together. So that is good to see. So expect this team to really kick on well over the season. Whether that will mean a top 5 or top 4 constructors finishing position, who knows? But this team is going in the right direction. I think there's no doubt about it. They've had a couple years where they kind of dipped because of, the financial trouble and going from Force India to Racing Point, all of that. But yeah, this team, they're going in the right direction. It's good to see because they are one of the best working outfits on the grid, I think. They do get the most out of what they've got. Right. Let's find a couple final comments on this Racing Point. Again, not much to say. Joseph Friedman, Racing Point's got a pretty neat looking car. Yeah. Again, it's not terrible. Just looks kind of the same as last year, except again, if I go back to the nose cone, it's a bit slimmer. But other than that, it's a 2019 car with a slimmer front nose cone. But I think we'll move on. Again, not much to say when it comes to the Pink Panthers. But now let's go on to Alfa Romeo. Now, Alfa Romeo have not revealed their livery yet. They will be revealing it tomorrow morning. And when I do my morning testing watch along the stream, I will show pictures of it and give my thoughts on it, my initial thoughts on it. But the aerodynamic pieces on this Alfa Romeo, by the way, these pictures are from when they tested on the Ferrari test track. Honestly, this just looks like a 2019 Alfa Romeo. It doesn't actually look like the 2020 car. If you look at the front wing, it's the same. It looks very similar to a 2019 Ferrari. And then if you look at the side, the barge board layout, you can see the boomerang wing there. But again, you can't really see much detail. But honestly, not much to see here. I think this is really just a 2019 car. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was kind of a, them trying to misdirect people by doing this. Because this could be their actual 2019 car and they've just fooled everyone into thinking it's a 2020 car. Because, again, aerodynamically, there's nothing really to see here. Side of the car looks about the same. Front wing, the same. There's nothing really to see. Hopefully, they come with something a bit different at testing, which I think they will. But nothing really to say about it, so I think we'll move on. Because again, aerodynamic pieces look about the same, and the livery hasn't been revealed yet. So let's go on to Haas F1. Now, this is the only picture of the car in the flesh that I could find. And this is Haas F1. I don't know if this was earlier today or yesterday, but they were doing a filming day, of course, with the car. And this is their new car. Now, the livery it looks better than previous Haas cars. It's not as good as last year's Haas car, though. The Haas livery from 2019 will be the best they've had so far still, despite their main title sponsor thing and all that. This is, compared to the pre-2019 liveries, probably a second best one, but still, this livery doesn't really look that good. And I'd probably say this is the second worst livery I have seen so far. Yeah, it looks better, but still doesn't look that good. And it's a shame, really, we don't have that many pictures of the real car in the flesh to really look at, because from this angle, the only thing you can really tell is the fin above the, or next to the airbox, and the front wing design. Now, the front wing design, to me, looks exactly like a 2019 Ferrari, which, of course, is not shock, because Haas, most of their car is a previous year Ferrari car anyway. But from this, there's not much to really say. The livery is not the worst they've ever produced, but definitely not the best. And aerodynamically, nothing really to see from this angle, I'm afraid. And I'm hoping tomorrow we'll get to see a lot more of this Haas car and a lot better imagery of what they have on the side of the car and towards the rear as well. So we'll move on from them. Actually, you know what, we won't. I want to ask you guys, what do you think of the Haas livery? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it better than last year? Let me know in the chat. And who is this person spamming? Let me get rid of that person. Sorry if that person wasn't spamming, but it just looks like spam to me. Joseph Friedman, classic livery. Aussie, I hope Haas do better this season. User, this is Haas's best livery by far in my opinion. All of Haas's previous liveries are either boring or ugly in my opinion. It doesn't look like a back marker this year to me. Volpus says, looks like a less shiny 2008 McLaren. I kind of see what you're on about. Ed Campwell, it's the 2019 Ferrari resprayed. You are probably right. There's no point even debating it. Right, let me see if there's any others about Haas F1. JB saying it's probably my second favourite Haas livery behind 2018. Yeah, it's alright. Compared to the rest of the grid, it's alright. But because this is the only photo, there's nothing much to say, is there? So, we'll go on to the final team. Williams Racing, who have got a new livery for the 2020 Formula 1 season. By the way, great news. Williams are actually ready for the season sooner than last season. So, great to see that they've actually got their car ready. Because last year, that was probably half the problem for why they were so slow. Because they were so slow in getting ready, of course, for testing and the season in general. And it is good to see this car on track. Now, forgetting the colour scheme and the livery, let's look at the aerodynamic pieces. Now, the front wing, it kind of looks, again, more Ferrari-ish in its concept. It doesn't look exactly the same, but it definitely doesn't look too similar to, say, a Mercedes. And then the front nose cone doesn't look as slim as other cars. I will say, though, the rear packaging you can see just in front of the rear tyre does look a lot tighter than it has before. So that looks like it's had a bit of work on that area. And from this angle, you can see the barge board area is a lot more developed than it was this time last year, of course. I can't tell if there's a boomerang wing on it. I think there is. Might be wrong, though. But all in all, the detail on that area of the car is still very small compared to even McLaren. So, yeah, as expected, this team struggling in that area. But you can see the slimness of the rear end as well in this picture. It really is a lot slimmer at the rear end. But bargeboard area, still looking a bit underdeveloped. And the rest of the car, kind of, yeah, there. Now, the livery. Is it better than last year? Yes, it is better than last year. But that's not exactly an achievement, because last year's was not good. It was terrible. But I'm afraid, at the end of the day, it is still just another toothpaste commercial. It really does look like one. It really does look like a Colgate commercial. Of course, for toothpaste. So, they've not stopped the memes against themselves. But, hopefully the Colgate Williams goes well in 2020. Why do they do it to themselves? Why? What? I kind of think I know what they were going for. I think maybe a bit of British red, white, and bluish type feeling, but the way they designed it, it just does look like a toothpaste can. So, yeah, there you go. And I'll go back to this other picture. There you go. So, guys, for the final car of this stream, let me know what you think of it. Is there any aerodynamic pieces that you've seen that I haven't, that I should take a look at quick? Such as, around the mirrors or side pods or anything like that. And does it still look like a Colgate commercial to you, or a toothpaste commercial? Let me know in the chat in the comments. Right. Let's find some comments about this. Ed Cantwell, so much bulkier than anything else. JB Williams have changed from Colgate to Little Teeth. Rooksfoot says Aquafresh. Johan Pink says better, but still the worst of all. I don't think it's the worst, but it's not good. It's still not good. Al Martin says it looks like a balloon on the sides on the AK or ABK beer logo. I guess. Katka, Colgate, how have you discovered that? Good job. JB, I do quite like this livery, to be honest. Last year was ass. This livery's better, which, is something. At least it's improvement. But then again, anything this year should have been improvement. Because last year was bottom of the barrel in terms of livery and overall performance of team and car. So it's not exactly hard to be better than last year. But yeah, it does look like a car that is suited to the back row of the grid. And it does look like a car that wants to be lapped multiple times, and maybe a car that, might not want to qualify here or there for a certain Grand Prix. As well, someone else said on Twitter, and it looks like a 1997 Arrows. It really does. If you're wondering what that car is, it's the car that Damon Hill almost won the Hungarian Grand Prix in. It does. In certain angles and ways, it does look like a 97 Arrows. There's no doubt about it. But it will not be fighting for the win in Hungary. I can guarantee you that. You're not going to have Russell dive-bombing Lewis Hamilton at turn 1. If that happens, then I'll probably scream so loud that I leave this dimension. Because that will not happen. No way. Aussie, a good improvement, but not there yet to the rest of the field. Ed Cantwell, hope it goes well. Russell deserves to get points on the board. This is the thing. As much as I take the piss, I do want Williams to improve, because if they get back into a midfield position, then we don't have back markers anymore. We have, 7 midfield teams fighting away for position, which is what we want. And as well, I do like George Russell, and I want him to be in a midfield car so we can see how good he is. So I want Williams also to improve from that aspect so we can actually see how good he is. I know he's good, but to Mercedes, they don't know how good he will be if he's driving a car that's a second a lap off the next slowest car, which last year was a Haas. So, yeah, there needs to be substantial improvement from, for the sake of Russell, there has to be. If he's ever going to be in a position where at Williams he can actually fight for points and have the pace to do it, not just because it rained a lot. Al Martin's plot twist, only Williams take part in the Hungarian Grand Prix and Russell wins. Russell is a better driver than Norris and Albon, in my opinion. I agree. I think based on F2, I mean, yeah, it is F2 and it was a couple of years ago, but he clearly won the F2 championship. He clearly won it. Right, let's finish off with a couple final comments and then I'll come to the end of the stream. Because I think we've been on long enough now. 2 hours? Revealed, well, not revealed, but they've already been revealed. We've looked at all the cars, and now tomorrow we get to see them moving at speed on the television. And yeah, can't wait. Right, let me find a couple final comments on Williams. Just want to make sure I get every single one in. JB says, I just want to see Williams improve for Russell's sake. I love that kid and that he's a great driver. Probably close to the levels of the top drivers. I think if you put Russell in a Mercedes, he would be fighting regularly with Leclerc and Verstappen. You know, every race, basically. I think he's that good in terms of speed. But again, we need to see in the Formula 1 environment how good he really is in that environment. Because, yeah, in the junior categories, very quick, one of the best drivers out there, but doesn't always translate into Formula 1. And until we see him in a proper midfield car, then we can't properly say how good he is. And that's a shame. And the final comment that I'll read out will be from Ozzy, who says, which race do you think Williams would do best in? Well, in terms of performance, it's hard to say, but let's be honest, it's going to be the race with the most retirements. So, yeah, I don't know, a wet race. I can't really say what track, because they're probably going to be that slow. It doesn't matter what track it is. It's going to be, again, a chaotic race, a wet race. That's how it's going to happen for them to get their best result of the season or be in higher positions in qualifying or whatever. That's the only way it is going to work for Williams. But, guys, that is it for this podcast episode. This 2-hour show where I've gone through every single car, looked at the liveries and the cars, and you guys, of course, are giving your thoughts as well. And now, tomorrow, we can get into pre-season testing and day 1 of pre-season testing. And again, just to remind you guys of my schedule tomorrow, I will be live at 7:30 a.m. UK time tomorrow morning. That's half an hour before the day of testing starts, and then I'll be live until 12 p.m. And then again, I won't be live in the afternoon because I don't want to be live the entire day because that would just be really boring. But I will then at 7 p.m. UK time do a recorded show where basically I review the day's action of testing. I'll look at, the results, the lap times, who broke down, who looked good on track when I was watching them, all of that stuff. That's what we're going to do tomorrow, and it'll probably be the same as well for Thursday and Friday, except on Thursday and Friday I will probably do a stream in the afternoon instead of the morning. So that's what's coming up, guys. Don't forget to come along to that on those particular days. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notifications bell for that content coming up over the next 3 days. You can subscribe by going to the bottom right of the screen and doing it there, or going to my homepage and doing it there. And of course, you're going to hit the notifications bell there. Hit the like button as well if you enjoy this content and you want to see this content continue. And as well, comment down below what you thought of this video and what do you think of the liveries. And if there are any parts of the cars aerodynamically that I didn't mention, make sure to mention it in the comments. And I'll make sure to correct myself on a later stream, possibly tomorrow even. So make sure to do that. Don't forget to join our Discord server, link below in the description. We have at least 400 people in that server, and it is growing all the time. And once the season gets underway, it'll continue growing up towards 500, 600, 700, so on and so forth. So don't forget to join that and join that ever-growing community. Follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110. Check out my Facebook page. ChazzaHDF1 is on Facebook. And as well, check out my website, ChazzaHD.com, for more content like this. But guys, until a very, very early start tomorrow for the first day of preseason testing, tomorrow on Wednesday, it has been me, ChazzaHD. Goodbye.